is Distilling 101, what you need to distill alcohol. This is how to make a wash. This is the first part of a 3-part series on how to make a wash, so how to actually make the alcohol in the beginning. So what you need is, I've got a few of the things in front of us here. I've got my bag of dextrose sugar. Now this is 25 kilos, don't need 25 kilos, I only need 8 kilos of this to go into here. I have a plastic scoop. I have some scales that go over 10 kilos because I need to make sure I'm weighing the right amount out. Now this is my bathroom scales, they are clean and ready to be used. So the way I do it, because not many people have a set of scales that go over 10 kilos in their kitchen, is I weigh the bucket. The bucket weighs 1.5 kilos, and then I just keep adding sugar until I hit 9.5. So that'll make 8 kilos of sugar inside the brew bucket. Now, I've also got here in front of me some sanitizing solution, some already made up sanitizing solution, my brushes, and a grommet stopper. Now, I am going to need to replace the grommet in the top of this. If you can see, the grommet has actually split. So I'm going to show you guys how to replace that grommet. But before we even start chucking anything in there, we need to make sure it's clean. So that's where we have to head over to the sink and make sure we wash everything down. I'm going to fast forward that part because it's a little bit boring, so you guys don't need to see all that. I'm going to use the sanitizing solution and scrub it all out. So check back with me in a second. Okay, so we're finished emptying out and scrubbing out all of the brew bucket, including all of the grooves on the inside of here and where we've removed the grommet. Now if you can see here, the grommet has split, so it wouldn't be holding a proper seal on our brew bucket. So what we're going to do here is we're going to replace this grommet with a brand new one, which I have here. Give it a snip. Out pops a new grommet. And we've just got to pop it into this little hole. Now I've already sanitized the top of this, but because I've just popped in a new piece of rubber, we're going to give it a quick spray over on either side and a rinse off. So we've got a new grommet in our hole. Now we need to refit our airlock. Now this is one of the airlocks that I have. I'll show you another different type. And this is the other type of airlock that I've got. So I've got a twin chamber and a single chamber airlock. They both work in the same principle. They stop air going back into the brew bucket rather than it let air and other things that will make our yeast go back. So I like to use the single chamber rather than the double because it's a lot easier if your wash decides to have a really big party. It can blow out all of your water. It's very hard to refill one of these halfway through a brew process. So I use the single chamber. They're a lot easier and a lot easier to clean too. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get this and poke it in like so it seals. So that's just replaced the airlock and the used grommet. So I'm going to give that another spray on both sides, all in there too, because I've touched it, so I don't want to get any contaminants on it. Make sure that's all sealed. I'm going to give this another rinse off. So now that this is done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this aside so it doesn't touch anything. On the underside is actually where we mainly don't want to touch, because that's where we don't want any bacteria. So I'm going to sit this aside, upside down, and prepare the rest of what we need to put together. Now, this here is a spigot. This here is a sediment reducing plug. So the sediment reducing plug goes in the back of the spigot, in there nicely, in the up position. You don't want it facing down, because if it faces down, it's going to suck your sediment up in through your spigot. That we don't want to do when we're going to take off our wash at a later stage. So make sure you've got that slit in the up position. Now, we put this in here and twist it in, making sure we're not going to cross thread. So if you notice, I went backwards until it went click. and that's going to slide in perfectly. Last thing you want to do is cross-thread plastic, because it's almost impossible to get your threads back, especially with plastic. So make sure that's not over-tightened, but tight enough so it seals. Make sure you close your spigot. Last thing is you want to do is be filling it with water, and out comes all of your sugar and water at the bottom. So make sure it's in the off position and screwed in tightly. Now if you notice, I have one of these tiny little brushes. It's what I use to clean in all the little grooves to make sure there was no bacteria in there. They have all been sanitized and cleaned out as well. So this bucket here is almost ready. So I'm just going to empty out the last little bit of solution that I've got in there, and now that's ready to go. Now, as I was talking about before, was how to weigh out the right amount of dextrose. Now, the fun part about dextrose is it comes in a nice big 25 kilo bag. But I don't need 25 kilos in one shot. I only need 8 kilos for this particular wash. So you're going, interesting. How are you going to get the right amount without actually having an over 10 kilo kitchen scales? Well, I've got my bathroom scales here. So what I'm going to do, let it set to 0. Put this on top. Wait a couple of seconds for it to realise how much it weighs. Take that off. It's 1.3. We'll do this again, just to make sure. $1.3. So consistently this is 1.3. So what we need to do now is fill this until it weighs 9.3 kilos. You know, how do you work that out? Well, I need 8 kilos of dextrose in here. It weighs 1.3. 8 plus 1.3 is 9.3 kilos. So we keep filling this up until we get to about where we need to be, and we start double checking how much we've weighed. Now, approximately volume-wise, a kilo is about 100 mils, or a litre. So, sorry, 1,000 mils is a litre. So approximately in here, we've got on the side of our bucket, you may not be able to see, I'll see if I can tilt it to get the reflection right. You have how many litres are up the side of this bucket. So we need to bring it up to approximately 8 litres on the side of here before we start weighing it properly. Just remembering it is dextrose and it is fine and it does fluff up. So it will be a lot higher than that when we actually look at the volume of it inside this brew bucket when we get to that stage. So let's start shoveling it in. This is a brand new bag of dextrose, by the way, so I've never actually opened this. It is 25 kilos as it is standing right here, right now. So I'm going to cut off the top with a pair of kitchen scissors. You may get your dextrose in different bags. You can get it in little boxes at your brew store. I buy my dextrose in a volume bag of 25 kilos because of the amount that I use to distill. Now, if you notice, I've just cut off the top, but it's still sealed. So I've got a Hessian bag or a plastic weave bag inside this. Screw this down so I can get into it better. That's better. And I'll cut into where the dextrose is. So it's actually sealed in quite nicely. There we go. Now if you want, open it up, fold down the sides of these. Now dextrose doesn't have very much of a smell at all. Actually, I'll see if I can get it. It's very powdery, as you can see. It's very, very, very fine sugar, so it'll dissolve a lot faster. So let's start filling this up. So I'm just going to move my scales out of the way until we need them to fill up. Bring this over, because I don't want to put dextrose everywhere. So there we go, in and empty. can already taste the dextrose in my mouth from the dust. Handling the dextrose reminds me of a movie called Scarface. The amount of white powder there is. And if you don't know that movie, go and have a look at it, it's great. If you've ever played Grand Theft Auto, you'll notice some of the scenes have been stolen for that movie in that game as well. So what I'm going to do now, after doing so many buckets into here, let me give this a quick wiggle. And if you notice, our sugar's up to about here. So I'm going to give it a quick weigh, find out what it weighs. Zero. Right, let's weigh this. .6. So we're getting close. We've only got under 2 kilos to go. So let's put in one more and see what it comes up to. Take up. Let's weigh this down. 8.3. So 1 more kilo and she's almost ready. So let's whack that in. Okay, let's weigh it again. .8. So half a kilo to go. So remembering we're needing to get to 9.3. 9.2, okay, so 100 grams is fine. Put that in there. Gonna just bring it over just a little bit over what it was. Let's go. 9.3, how about that? Cool, so we've got 8 kilos of dextrose in here, ready to go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tie this bag up, take out the plastic measuring scoop, make sure I take out as much air as I possibly can out of this, whack on a plastic tie so that it doesn't go everywhere. Go to the sides. Done. Alright, I'm going to take this off the bench. So now we've got our volume. I'll give it a wiggle and I'll show you. So it's up to about 11 litres on there. So 8 kilos is about 11 litres of volume. So as you can tell, it is quite aerated at the moment inside here. But what we need to do is we need to fill it up to just where this line here is on the bevel. So there's a surrounding plastic piece. We need to fill that up with water. But we need to keep it at 30 degrees Celsius, which is, for you Fahrenheit people, 86 degrees Fahrenheit, before we can pitch our yeast. So let's start with some hot water and bring the temperature up. Now if you notice on the front here, I have some lines marked. So I'm not allowed to have the temperature go over 32 degrees, and we don't want it to fall below 17. So we want our marker to sit about here, 28, and slowly go down to about 22 over the next 5 to 7 days. Right, so let's fill this thing with hot water. First pot of hot water. Now you might be thinking, right, so how am I going to stir that? Well, I have an extremely long stirring stick or stirring spoon. Now this is plastic. It doesn't hold bacteria, but I haven't washed it yet. What do I need to do? I need to spray this down with our sanitizing solution at the same time. Now this has been sanitized, I will allow this to go in here. Now what we need to do is we need to stir up all this sugar so it dissolves. You can see it. It's very thickish. Well, it's at this consistency. So I'll put that down in there, and I'm going to pour in the next bucket of hot water. Next hot. Now the next one I'm going to put in is going to be cold water. Now get right in there and start turning this thing into a whirlpool, because we need to get all of that dextrose dissolved. Alright, next, cold water. Alright, let's keep stirring this and see what temperature we get it up to. Just remember, we need to get it to approximately 30 degrees Celsius. Now that has completely dissolved. The temperature gauge on the side. A little bit more hot water needs to go into that. Now I'm not using boiling water, I'm just using hot water out of the tap to bring it up to the correct temperature. Right, that sugar has completely dissolved now. That's gone up in temperature wise, so I need to put a bit more cold water in there. So this is where we play back and forth to get the temperature correct. Alright, we're going to sit here, stir this in, and we're going to wait a couple of minutes to make sure we've got the right temperature right throughout our sugar. Because if we need to add a little bit more, we can either add a little bit of cold, or we can add a little bit of hot. So I'm just going to put this aside. Okay, so I think it needs a little bit of hot water, because it's sitting at about 27 to 28 degrees Celsius. Okay, in goes the hot water. Now you would have noticed that I took this out and I put it down. What I'm not going to do is I'm not going to stick that straight back in there. What I need to do is I need to re-sanitize this. Now it's re-sanitized, safe to put in here so it doesn't infect this. So we give this a quick stir around to make sure that all the water and everything get mixed in correctly. There we go. Sitting at about 28 to 30 degrees Celsius, which is where I needed it. So what we're going to do now is what is called a hydrometer reading. So I don't need this anymore, so I'm just going to put this down for the time being. We need to get a hydrometer reading. Now this is my hydrometer. Now, I'm not going to stick this in. I need to quickly sanitize this as well. Okay, so this has now been sanitized and is ready to go in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it in and give it a twist at the same time. What I'm doing when I twist it, it stops any air bubbles from sticking itself around it. So it is sitting at 100. Let's try it again just to make sure. It's sitting at 100, which is 249. 249 approximate sugar per litre. Cool, that's where we want it. Alright, so I'll take this out. I'm going to write that down. Give me 2 seconds. Alright, so we've now got our wash, well, the start of our wash, ready to go. It's sitting at 30 degrees Celsius, which is where I needed it to be. We've done our hydrometer reading, which is sitting at 249 grams of sugar per litre of water. We've done everything but pitch our yeast. So now that we've got this here, we've got our yeast. Let's open her up and pitch. There we go. I'll give you a little look of what's inside here. All little yeasties and all different bits and pieces. So what we're going to do here is pour this in. There we go. That's in. Now we need to stir it again. Ah, but hang on, I've already put this down. So guess what I need to do? I need to re-sanitize it again. Now it's been sanitized, I can give it another stir. So what we're doing here is we're stirring in all the yeast, so it helps with activation. There we go. Our yeast has been pitched. So what we do next is we put this, now remembering we turned this upside down so it wouldn't get any bacteria and stuff on it while we were washing everything else. Making sure we twist it until it goes click so we don't cross thread our plastic, because plastic is almost impossible to take the cross thread out. And twist this to seal. Now we don't want to over tighten because plastic is also very impossible to unstick after you've done your brew, so just enough. Grab this. A little bit of boiled water. Around the outside of the airlock, there we go. And pop in the top of our airlock. Push that down. There we go. That airlock is now sealed. Now to make sure it is sealed, what we do is we push on the sides. Oops. There we go. Now, that is now sealed. There's no air coming in or out. What we need to do is wait for that to start burping. All right, that's how to pitch your yeast and make your wash. This has been Brewing with Craig. This is how to make a wash, how to distill alcohol 101, part 1 of 3. If you've seen anything you like in these videos, make sure you give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget, if you've got any comments, questions, or things I can be doing better in these videos, leave it in the comments field below on YouTube. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button. Get notified when I do these. Brewing with Craig, Cooking with Craig, Urban Explorer, car maintenance, what's in the box, my daily vlogs, you name it, I film it, it ends up on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button, and until next time, see you in the next video.